3 weeks into the 37th America's Cup cycle here in Barcelona, and with 47 races completed over the course of the preliminary series and the double round robin phases, the pecking order has changed. Depending on what you'd expected, maybe not by that much. The French Orient Express racing team were the last into the Cup and the first out. Many were not that surprised, while others, and I'll add myself to the list, not only thought that they were capable of going further, but were impressed with their punchy performances. Alinghi Red Bull Racing's bounce back after losing their mast, and for the next few races their mojo, was also impressive. Others were surprising in different ways. American Magic was considered to be a force to be reckoned with going into the event. With a super slick, low drag design and more hours on the water than any other team, there was good reason. But their performance lacked consistency, which gave rise to the speculation that their recumbent cycling configuration was maybe part of the problem. Perhaps understandably, the team denies this and points more to the way in which the power is used rather than the way it's generated. Towards the end of the round robin, co-helmsman Paul Goodison suffered an injury on board that meant he was off the boat for the final couple of days racing. Again, little was said by the team other than his replacement, Lucas Calabresi, is a very experienced and capable AC75 helmsman. But once again, speculation has mounted as to what effect this has had on the team's performance. Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli went into the event as favourites and quickly demonstrated why with a string of wins. Their ability to point higher on the upwind legs while maintaining speed drew plenty of attention and looked to be one of their biggest strengths. For weeks, only the Kiwis were able to beat them, until they squared up to INEOS Britannia on the 7th of September. It was a breezy day and the British got off to a great start and dominated the race from the off. As if demonstrating that this was anything but a fluke, INEOS went out and delivered another win against the Italians on the final race of the round robin, this time in much lighter winds. This placed the British at the top of the Challenger leaderboard, handing them the advantage of being able to select their opponent in the semi-finals, along with the side of the course that they entered the first race and which race they would take. A month or so earlier, things didn't look so certain for the British team. A few days ahead of the preliminary series, as other teams were out practicing, the British boat was in the shed with its foils and arms disconnected as it underwent a 4-day work programme. This raised a few eyebrows and questions as to whether the team was doing a last-minute about turn. The assumption was that the team was switching back to an earlier set of foils. If this was the case, then surely it didn't bode well for a performance plan that you would assume was set on a path of incremental improvements. The boat didn't look that flash on the racecourse to start with either. Although they were quick downwind, upwind they were struggling through tacks and didn't seem to be able to point at times. In addition, the lack of points on the leaderboard to start with could also be traced to mistakes and unforced penalties. But midway through the round robins, things started to change, and by the end of the series, Rita looked quick upwind and down with the ability to point at will. Plus, the British starts and boat handlings were slick. So what if what was really happening was that the team had gone out to an extreme as well they could, established that they were a bridge too far, and then returned to what they knew instead? It's just a guess, and unsurprisingly the team aren't that keen on discussing details like that. But it could make sense if you think there's still enough performance to be squeezed out of modifications that may or may not be available. As I say, it's just a guess, but their current position has led British supporters daring to hope about what might be possible. Ultimate victory is certainly a long way off. Every America's Cup cycle has big bumps along the way. With such complex boats, it seems certain that reliability will dog teams at some stage. But in the meantime, if the British can make it to the finals, aside from Auckland in 2021 when they went straight from the round robins to the Prada Cup finals, this will be the first time a British team has worked its way through the knockout phase of a multi-challenger cup since 1983, when Victory faced Australia too. And we know what happened after that. And what of the defenders themselves, Emirates Team New Zealand? If there's one team that might have been holding back, I'd say it's this one. After all, they know they'll be in the Cup, so what's the point in showing all they've got and smashing the opposition, assuming they can? There isn't any. But what we did see is that they looked vulnerable at times in the pre-start. Being on their own for the next 5 weeks isn't the best way to practice this, especially when the challengers are up in the stakes as their racing gets closer. All of which suggests that while the odds are that the Kiwis still have the upper hand, the margin is nothing like it was last time around. And if you think back to Auckland in 2021, they would be the first to point out that in the Cup match itself, after 3 days of racing, it was 3-3. The 37th America's Cup looks set to be a great few weeks.